Have you ever wondered why, no matter how much effort or devotion you pour into a relationship, something still feels missing? What if the secret to making a man fall deep, beyond desire or habit, lies not in your actions, but in the unconscious symbol you awaken within him? In this video, we'll unpack Carl Jung's groundbreaking concept of archetypal projection and reveal how a woman's silent authenticity can etch her presence into a man's soul. You'll discover why trying to please can backfire, and why stepping into your truth sparks an irresistible, magnetic pull. Stay with us until the end, and you'll learn the unconscious triggers that ignite deep love and how to embody them without saying a word. What happens inside his mind when you detach from validation and fully inhabit yourself? Real-life stories of women who became unforgettable simply by being authentic. The single mindset shift that turns emotional flight into a transformative connection. How to protect your dignity and attract lasting devotion without begging or pleading. By the final frame, you'll not only understand why past relationships faltered, but also gain the tools to foster genuine, soul-deep bonds. Ready to stop chasing and start becoming the woman who doesn't just capture attention, but captivates the heart. Let's begin. If you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, please click the subscribe button and ring the notification bell to stay updated on all our latest content. The real tragedy, as I see it, is that so many of us are left staring into that yawning emptiness inside and have absolutely no idea how to fill it. We've never been taught to turn our gaze inward, to become tender with our wounds, and take responsibility for the cracks in our hearts. Instead, we chase shadows, another woman's smile, another project to bury ourselves in, endless distractions that promise relief, but only deepen the ache. And here's the heartbreaking truth. Nothing we pursue externally can ever replace what she represented, not because she was flawless or out of reach, but because she embodied a powerful invitation to our highest self, that possibility for transformation we didn't even know we craved. What most people miss is that her departure was never about abandonment. It was an act of pure, unshakable authenticity. She stayed as long as her soul could breathe in the relationship. The moment she realized that remaining would demand the sacrifice of her integrity, she walked away. There were no frantic pleas or desperate arguments. She didn't throw herself at your feet, begging you to alter your course. Instead, she closed the door with quiet dignity, leaving behind a silence so profound it imprinted itself on your very being. And trust me when I say, no matter how hard you try to forget, you will never forget the lesson of that silence. Ask yourself, have you ever felt that your fierce self-respect was misread as cold indifference? That every pause, every moment of deliberate quiet was interpreted as a lack of caring, when, in fact, it was your brave way of saying, I will not negotiate my worth? If that rings true for you, I invite you to share your story below. Someone out there needs to hear that letting go isn't defeat. It's the most radical form of self-love. Carl Jung taught us that the unconscious mind cannot tell what is literally real from what is symbolically potent. When any woman becomes a symbol in a man's psyche, she transcends her flesh and blood. She morphs into an idea, a mirror reflecting the parts of ourselves we've long ignored or suppressed. No one forgets the mirror that forces them to confront their own shadow. After she's gone, most men think they're yearning for her laughter, her touch, the physical comfort of her presence. But what truly pierces the heart is the loss of that ineffable spark. She ignited the blend of admiration, vulnerability, and reckless hope that felt so intoxicatingly alive. Rational explanations fall flat because the bond you shared was never just about two bodies connecting. It was about two souls daring each other to grow. In the void she leaves, your unconscious mind springs to life in a whirlwind of longing. You replay conversations, glorify small gestures, and romanticize moments until they shine like perfect jewels in your memory. Yet none of it can resurrect that original alchemy, for what you're pursuing is not her, but the inner landscape she unveiled. And here lies the beautiful tragedy. the harder you chase her memory, the further you drift from the true chance for healing. To look inside and ask, what parts of me did her presence awaken? What emptiness was she pointing to when she walked away? A woman who refuses to bargain for your love, who refuses to beg, who simply chooses freedom over fear. That woman is a revolutionary. She isn't the passive romantic heroine. She's the personification of liberation. And though her departure wounds us, it also fascinates us, because buried deep in our hearts is the same longing for freedom. And yet so few of us dare to love from that place of absolute authenticity. In Jungian terms, when we face this loss, we embark often unknowingly on the path of individuation, the journey of finding within ourselves what no external love can ever give. And as paradoxical as it seems, that journey typically begins not with an epiphany, but with the ache of goodbye. There are moments in life so deceptively simple, a single lingering glance, a silent goodbye offered without bitterness, the soft click of a door shutting in calm resolve. And yet they have the power to shatter a man's inner world in one swift stroke. I've seen it myself. That quiet exit, devoid of argument or tears, can feel like an earthquake beneath your feet. And strangely, it isn't only grief that greets you in the rubble, it's possibility. Because when everything you thought you depended on falls away, you suddenly realize you're standing on virgin ground, free to rebuild something truer. What strikes me most about her departure is that she never tried to cling on. She didn't barrage him with pleas or rage against fate. Instead, she walked away with a serene certainty that what's genuine will never require force. I find that idea profoundly beautiful. True love isn't something you beg for in the dark. It's something you honor by recognizing when it's time to let go. In that recognition lies a wisdom most of us never learn until it's too late. After she leaves, it feels almost unbearable, the emptiness echoing in every corner of his mind. He reaches for distractions, old habits, even new faces, hoping to fill the void, but nothing soothes the ache. I remember thinking, this isn't just a breakup, it's a rupture in my very sense of self. Carl Jung called these turning points moments of necessary confrontation, and he was right. Life sometimes forces us, without our consent, to face the parts of ourselves we've buried. And when a woman slips away so quietly, she becomes the mirror, reflecting those hidden flaws and longings we'd rather ignore. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. And then the questions start tumbling in, sometimes at 3 a.m. in the hush before dawn. Why did I need her so badly? Why does her absence feel like a betrayal of my soul? What piece of me was I seeking in her presence? In wrestling with these questions, the image he once held of himself unshakable, forever in control, emotionally invulnerable, begins to crumble. And though the process is as terrifying as it is poignant, I can't help but feel moved by it. Because beneath that trembling vulnerability lies the birth of something real, a man who no longer fears his own heart, who is learning, for perhaps the very first time, that true strength is born in the silence after the storm. What that woman embodied in her silence, her quiet sovereignty, that tender yet unwavering distance, was a reflection of a truth he had never dared to explore within himself. She didn't arrive bearing the gift of comfort or the promise of security. Instead, she held up a mirror to his fractured interior, illuminating the tremors and fissures he had long suppressed. And as painful as that revelation was exposing how deeply unsettled his own emotions lay, it marked the first stirrings of his true awakening. At first, this newfound clarity felt like walking through a storm. Many men, confronted with such raw honesty, instinctively recoil. They crave the illusion of normalcy, the familiar routines that soften the edge of pain. Let me go back, they plead internally. Let me reattach myself to what was comfortable, what was easy. But the psyche has its design. Once the heart has glimpsed its vulnerability, there is no rewinding the tape. The moment becomes a permanent watermark on the soul. In that disquieting space, however, comes a fork in the road. Some choose the same old escape routes: late-night parties, reckless flirting, noise to drown out the echo of her absence. But others, braver perhaps, or simply more desperate, pause. They take a shaky breath. They decide, almost against their nature, to look inward. And in that intentional stillness, a subtle metamorphosis begins. They might pick up a well-worn journal, the one they once abandoned, and begin to write down memories they thought forgotten. Childhood wounds surface, the feeling of never quite fitting in, the sting of teachers' scorn, the ache of a parent's unmet expectations. They recall past loves, relationships where they clung to control, as if it were a lifeline. Slowly, painfully, they begin to piece together a pattern. They see how, time and again, they sought external validation to fill an internal void. They recognize the shadow cast by every fear of abandonment, every silent agreement to settle for less than they deserved. It is within these probing questions: why did I idolize her presence? What part of me was I trying to save? That the real work begins. He realizes that it wasn't her essence that caused the rupture. It was the distorted image he had superimposed on her, a projection of his own unmet needs. That woman, with her poised defiance, challenged him not to be the hero in her story, but the hero in his own life. Over months, and sometimes years, this transformation whispers rather than shouts. There is no fireworks finale, no grand epiphany on a mountaintop. Instead, there are tiny shifts. The first time he sits alone and faces his tears without shame, the moment he chooses a book on emotional intelligence over mindless scrolling, the evening he looks at an old photograph and feels gratitude instead of regret. With each small act of self-compassion, the edges of his old mask begin to soften and crumble. In these quiet victories, he experiences a fundamental change in perception. He no longer flinches when a woman speaks her mind. He no longer craves the mirror she holds up, because he has built a mirror of his own, one tempered by self-awareness and kindness. He catches himself resisting the urge to control every outcome, and instead allows life's currents to carry him forward with a newfound trust. This, Jung would say, is the essence of individuation, the slow disentangling from our inherited roles and self-imposed personas until we stand face to face with our genuine self. The conqueror who once prided himself on invulnerability now greets his own fragility as a friend. His cracks, those very vulnerabilities he feared, become the most luminous parts of his being, windows through which compassion and authenticity flow. And so, the woman's departure, once a source of acute anguish, transforms into a sacred catalyst. She didn't abandon him, she awakened him. In honoring her freedom, he learned to honor his own. In relinquishing the fantasy of effortless love, he discovered the power of loving himself, an act far more formidable than any grand romantic gesture. Now, he walks through the world with a quieter confidence. His steps are no longer driven by the need to be seen as unbreakable, but by the understanding that true strength lies in embracing our humanity. In this unfolding journey, he finds not a destination, but a continual becoming, ever curious, ever compassionate, and ever open to the next quiet invitation toward wholeness. That woman, the one who slipped away with nothing more dramatic than a steady, unhurried step, has taken on a new shape in his memory. Gone is the image of an unreachable ideal. Instead, he sees her as the mirror that first showed him the vast, untamed terrain of his own heart. It's no longer about conjuring schemes to woo her back. It's about deciphering the gift she unknowingly offered, not the spark of desire, but the awakening of presence. She didn't teach him how to chase passion. She revealed how to honor stillness, how to listen to the whispers of his soul. In that serene departure lay a deeper lesson, the profound power of loving without needing approval, of being whole even when standing alone. In a world that has conditioned men to equate affection with possession, where linking arms too often means laying down shackles, her example stands as a soft revolution. She refused to be yoked by his expectations or tethered by his fears. She showed him that love given freely, without demand or manipulation, translates into the purest form of freedom for both giver and receiver. And when he absorbed this truth, something inside him began to shift. He found himself treating his own heart with a gentler hand, pausing to ask, "What do I truly feel?" rather than defaulting to the frantic search for someone else's validation. The frantic pursuit of a partner who would fill his emptiness gave way to a quieter journey, becoming a man who could choose himself with integrity and compassion, and from that grounded place, forge bonds that honored both souls equally. With time, her quiet silhouette in his mind softened into something almost sacred. The sting of loss dulled into a warm glow of gratitude. For in lighting that flame of self-awareness, she performed an unspoken act of grace. He realized he wasn't mourning what he had lost, but celebrating what he had found, a depth of self-respect that no relationship could ever truly give, but only reveal. And in that revelation, he discovered that his capacity to love had grown exponentially, no longer dependent on a partner's presence, but fueled by an inner wellspring of self-acceptance. If you are a woman who has ever chosen departure over betrayal of your peace, hear this: your leaving was never in vain. Even if he never articulated his debt to you, even if he stumbled through anger or confusion, your courage planted a seed deep within him. And though it may have sprouted in the shadows at first, it has grown into something vital tree whose roots anchor him to his truth. That seed, born of your silent strength, has changed the trajectory of his life in ways neither of you could have predicted. So let us honor those decisions made in quiet dignity. Let us remember that sometimes the truest act of love is not to stay, but to step away, creating space for another person to discover the treasure chest of their own heart. And know this: even when silence is all that remains, its echo carries a power far greater than any cry for attention. It carries the promise of awakening. Have you ever paused in the middle of your day and felt a sudden ripple in the air, as if the ghost of your energy still hovered in a room you once occupied? I'm talking about that uncanny sensation when someone mentions your name and you catch them hesitating, drawn inexplicably into the trace you left behind. Or perhaps you've watched a friend or lover, their gaze suddenly distant, as though your silhouette still lingers in their mind long after you've walked away. That's the quiet power of an unforced exit. Your departure becomes more profound than any desperate plea to stay, because it speaks of self-respect and inner harmony. Think back to the last time you chose to leave a situation, not out of anger, but out of reverence for your peace. Maybe you whispered your goodbyes with a calm heart, refusing to anchor yourself in conflict, and watched someone's expression shift, as if they suddenly realized that nothing coerced can ever sustain a real connection. That moment, when your footsteps fade but your energy remains palpable, is a testament to the fact that our presence and our absence can both be acts of deep influence. When you step away with authenticity, you offer a gift, the chance for others to reckon with their truths, unclouded by the noise of your insistence. There arrives a point, beyond the initial pang of separation, where the frenetic urge to reclaim what's lost dissolves, making room for something infinitely richer: understanding. The heart stops asking, "How do I get her back?" and starts whispering, "What did she truly leave behind?" Suddenly, it becomes clear that her departure marked not just an ending, but the pivot between two worlds: who you were before and who you might become afterward. It isn't her words you replay at midnight. It's the very way she chose to exist and to leave that echoes in your soul. If you are still watching this video and find these lessons helpful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. Carl Jung taught that the things that move us most deeply don't simply vanish. They transmute into symbols within our unconscious. A symbol, unlike a fleeting image, endures. It continues to act upon us, to shape our dreams and decisions, requiring no physical presence to do its work. So even though she has gone, her influence persists like a haunting melody that revisits you in silent moments, stirring longings you never knew you felt. In every unexpected surge of courage, every moment of stillness you grant yourself, you are living out the song she helped you hear. And here's the beautiful paradox. The more you honor that lingering resonance, the less you chase the memory of her, and the more you become attuned to the quiet symphony within your own heart. You learn that real transformation isn't about recapturing the past, but about weaving those echoes into new patterns of self-discovery. So I ask you now, have you ever felt your energy cast its own shadow, lighting a spark in someone else's journey? Has your calm departure ever planted a seed of change in another's life? Share your story below. Your experience might be the gentle nudge someone else needs to embark on their oath of awakening. It's as if a veil has lifted, and he finally sees the landscape of his heart in vivid clarity. For so many years, he unknowingly chased relationships that promised to fill the hollows within him, seeking validation like a thirsty traveler in the desert, craving to feel indispensable, to matter more than anyone else. But with her, everything shifted. There was no frantic scramble to prove his worth, no exhausting tug of war for attention or affection. Instead, there was choice, pure, unpressured choice. And that simple freedom disarmed him more deeply than any grand romantic gesture ever could. I find this revelation profoundly moving. No one had ever shown him that love could be an offering born from abundance rather than a plea born from lack. He'd never been taught that vulnerability could coexist with dignity, that it was possible to stand unneeded, yet still be profoundly cherished. She taught him this truth, silently, effortlessly, through the way she moved through his world, and, just as importantly, the moment she stepped out of it. Her presence framed his life. Her absence reframed his soul. And from that sacred space of clarity, true transformation began to blossom. He no longer feels compelled to hunt for a partner who will complete him, nor does he piece together new stories to paper over the cracks in his self-worth. Now he understands that real love cannot be demanded or bartered. It can only be shared from a place of inner peace. I've seen so many men confuse intensity for intimacy, conflating drama with devotion, but in this newfound wisdom, he learns that the richest connections arise when two complete beings choose each other freely, without strings attached. What astonishes me most is how utterly complete her role in his life has become. She doesn't owe him any explanations, no grand return, no further proof of her intentions. She was never a damsel to be rescued or a prize to be claimed, but a catalyst, an illuminating beacon that reflected his depths and guided him toward self-discovery. Her energy, radiant and unwavering, fulfilled its purpose. It awakened him. Now, I want to ask you, have you ever sensed that you were the spark in someone else's emotional awakening, even if your bond didn't follow a traditional path to happily ever after? Have you seen in someone's eyes, after you've left, that flicker of something profound, gratitude, regret, or a newfound resolve to stand on their own 2 feet? If this resonates with you, I invite you to share your story below. There is immense power in testimony. Sometimes, the quiet act of recounting our journeys becomes the most luminous balm for our scars. In this nascent chapter of his life, he no longer flees from himself. Instead, he leans in, curious and compassionate, recognizing that everything he once sought in her, the calm certainty, the uncompromising depth, the liberating sense of freedom, can be nurtured from within. He understands that this inner work won't be instant or effortless, but with each intentional choice, each moment of self-honesty, he inches closer to living his truth. And perhaps the most beautiful irony of all, when he now calls her name in the stillness of memory, his heart swells not with the ache of loss, but with the warmth of gratitude. For she, without a single plea or tear, planted a seed of self-love in his soul, a seed that continues to grow long after her silhouette has faded from his daily life. Because in the end, the deepest love story isn't about 2 bodies intertwined or vows exchanged. It's about the quiet, indelible mark one soul leaves on another. And that, I believe, is a love story worth honoring for a lifetime. And there you have it, the quiet power of a gentle goodbye. The way a single act of self-respect can shatter old patterns and spark an inner revolution. If her departure taught him anything, it was that true love begins when we honor our freedom, that vulnerability and dignity can walk hand in hand, and that the deepest bonds grow from wholeness, not need. Now I want to hear from you. What's the most important lesson you've taken from this story? What insight will you carry into your own life, relationships, or personal growth? Drop your answer in the comments below. Your experience might be exactly the inspiration someone else needs today. If you enjoyed this reflection, please leave your comment below and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Until next time, may you love and let go with courage and compassion.